Good morning. I am in my studio in Elmhurst, Illinois, just outside Chicago, and working on a Madonna statue, figurative painting in watercolor. And I decided to film this after I had already done the sketch. So as you can see the crosshairs on this photo, I actually had crosshairs on this paper as well to help me with getting the sketch accurate. And I've been working on a lot of figures lately, and painting statues I've found is a great way to practice figure drawing and painting. So this statue is on the corner of my street block. I live in downtown, well, there's several areas. This isn't the city center of Elmhurst, but it's more on the south side. But this church takes over, it has a school and rectory and many other buildings, and takes up a large area and has quite a bit of activity added to my neighborhood. So I always love walking by the statue, which stands on the corner, surrounded by a little flower garden and some trees shading her. And there are often birds perched on her head or her hands or the flower wreath that's on her right now. In the winter, there's sometimes birds sitting on her, and in the spring there are blossoming trees above her, and in the summer she's got a flower bed at her feet. So she's just always a joy to walk by, and I just always feel happy when I see her. So also, as I was saying, I've had a hard time getting models to sit for me. There are classes, I think, is the easiest way to go for me right now. I haven't really pursued it. I'm sure if I really put in the effort, I could get people to sit for me. But there has to be, especially I think when I'm fairly new to figure drawing, that painting statues is a nice way to go. And some of the reasons are, well, they're easy to find, and I just took this photo with my cell phone, and then I, printed it out on just some copy paper. So that made it easy for me to use her as a model for me. And then also she's so patient and she doesn't complain. Yeah, that part is nice. And so there's also just that intimacy. Yes, I'm getting to know this statue very well. But if you are new at figure drawing, statues, I think two of the biggest benefits are the fact that well, let me say three. So that I said one is just easily accessible, and then number two would be there's an intimacy that I feel can be intimidating if you have a model and you feel like there's this pressure to paint this person right, or as I've discussed in other videos, especially if it were a family member, which would be kind of easy for me to get a sit for me over maybe a stranger. But there's that intimacy that brings up all these emotions that will affect the way you draw. And then also just, the fear of being judged by your sitter, or even just if you, sometimes it's hard nowadays, especially with the internet, I feel, to just sit for hours with someone and not talking, just being quiet alone with someone. I mean, do we even do this with our spouses or other family members or significant people in our lives? So it's a very personal thing, I think, when you are having someone sit for you. So to do a painting of a statue kind of takes that away. And so maybe that's something that could be helpful to especially someone who's learning to figure draw. And then what was I going to say? The third thing is just the fact that the statue is in marble or some sort of stone, and while that might seem cold, it does give you just kind of like the bare bones without colors or patterns, and a lot of busyness that you're going to have to deal with. So it kind of, in a way, takes out some of the left side of the brain problems. You know, you don't have to worry about the color of her hair. I do have some colored flowers on her head, but I kept those very abstract. I didn't, you know, even from they are brighter. They were definitely red flowers, but I don't know exactly what kind of flowers they are. I didn't walk right up to her and, you know, climb on the pedestal and see what exactly was in her hair. I just knew that they were red. For sure, I knew they were reddish pinkish flowers. But besides that, I just kept them fairly abstract myself. But that's really the only detail that would maybe catch me in my left side of the brain. The other is just, yeah, the fact that her face is very neutral and plain and just carved out of stone. So it takes away a lot of the left side of the brain issues. And again, with her clothes, I like the fact that there's a lot of draping and folds that's actually something I wanted to work on and practice, and drew me as well to this statue in particular. But you know, the fact that there's no print or actual cloth that I'm dealing with that would have busyness just kind of makes it, again, more bare bones. So I'm able to just focus on just a more simple drawing, and that's, I think, good for a beginner, someone who's just learning how to work with figure drawing. Also, watercolors, I think, are great for painters who are new to figure drawing. I feel like with oils, first of all, oil can just be intimidating in general. I feel like watercolor is closer to drawing than oil paint. I think because it just kind of, even just the way I hold a brush is more like a pencil when I'm doing watercolors a lot of times. And with paints, it goes on, it can sometimes tend to become a sculpture, and I know that's never my intent. And even I know there's a painter I read a book by called Hans Hofmann, talks about how some painters are really almost sculptors, and he tries to keep away from that and he taught all his art students. Of course, he was doing abstract art, but he taught them, you know, stick with flat. You know, you really want to work on push and pull and within the medium, and he feels like people that are trying to just build up sculptures on their canvas, they're kind of losing the whole purpose of the painting process, which is trying to create the effect of 2 and 3 dimensionality while you know, keeping within the bounds of painting as a form of expression. So anyway, let's get back to this painting. So I put in about 4 layers, letting them dry between layers. I'd say now this video is about 15 minutes, and I sped it up by 4 times. There were 4 breaks in between times, so probably only 15-minute sessions, 10 to 15-minute sessions for these layers. And then there's probably another 15-20 minutes before I started filming of actually drawing and sketching. So I tend to work fairly fast, and Now, I have a lot of people told me that, you know, they actually work very tight and want to try to loosen up, and so they like that about my work. I have mentioned this before, that my practice right now is actually trying to spend more time and get a little bit tighter, and learn how to really focus on technical skills. So in this painting, I feel like her hands, as you can see, I'm working on her, well, the left hand of this painting, but I feel like the hands are more important than even her face in this painting. I just feel like they are very a part of the meaning of this statue, and also the emotional feelings that they stir in me make them even more important than her face. And it's more about her body language to me, and what her hands are saying, that she's open, but her head is down in a respectful pose, but she is not like ashamed. She's just in a very reverent pose. And so yeah, I just wanted to hopefully portray that. One thing I did do at this point is taking a tip from the book Drawing on the Right Side of the Brain, which I've mentioned before, is I actually at this point go upside down and just look at the negative space on her head, because I feel like it's not right. It almost looks like there's a dimple in the top of her skull. So, you know, she probably has some hair underneath there, but I want to make sure I've got it right. So I do that. I did notice, and maybe this is just my personal opinion, well, her, I don't feel like I got her gown or her robes perfect. I feel like there is some margin for error, and that they don't have to be technically 100% correct. And in fact, some of these just kind of hints at what's correct, and not overworking it, that makes it kind of just a painting instead of you know, a super technical copy of the photograph. So anyway, I'm very happy with the way this turned out. I used a rosy, it's probably a Queen of Credone red. It's by Old Holland Scheveningen. I have no idea how they say that. Rose is the red, and then there's also a Brilliant Pink by Old Holland, which is the lighter colors. And then also I subdued it with the ultramarine blue and cadmium yellow, are the blue and the yellow. And then I have some sort of, I think, a French oak, red ochre, or either that or a French Italian. No, French Italian? No, it couldn't be that. Italian earth orange, maybe? Is part of the background, mixed with ultramarine. And for the very darkest shadows, like under her, by her right hand, that was more of the ultramarine. Anyway, yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you liked it, leave a thumbs up.